You're listening to the Wilmac Wire, the podcast that's designed to give you a glimpse into a growing SaaS company, specifically in the realm of customer interaction technology. From customer experience to data management, we'll talk about it here. Thank you for tuning in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Wilmac Wire. My name is Emily Miller. I am your host from Wilmac Technologies, and we're in the middle of a brief summer hiatus for the Wilmac Wire. I promise I'll be back with new episodes in 2 weeks. So with the July holiday and a bit of personal chaos, including moving into a new home, we're hitting pause just for a few short weeks. And I'm actually using this break to line up the next round of guests and episodes for season 2. In today's replay, we're going back to season 2, episode 6, which aired in March. And it's my conversation with Kevin Surace, AI pioneer and father of the virtual assistant. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Kevin in person at an event at the Golisano Institute for Business and Social Entrepreneurship, who was one of our partners, a few weeks ago. And we kind of revisited some of the topics in our conversation when we connected in person. So it just made me all that more excited to listen to this episode again. In this episode specifically, Kevin and I talk about how he became the father of the virtual assistant, whose name was Mary. She came far before Siri and Alexa. So we discussed that story, and we also chat about how virtual assistants have evolved in the contact center specifically, what AI can realistically automate in tier 1 support, and then why businesses need to move past playing around with AI and actually start executing and integrating it into their business strategy. So whether this is your first time hearing this episode or you're revisiting it, Kevin's insights are just as relevant today with this technology evolving so quickly. So like I mentioned before, new episodes return in 2 weeks, so stay tuned. And in the meantime, I hope you enjoy this episode of the Wilmac Wire.
Alrighty, I'm here today with Kevin Surace. And let me tell you to our listeners, he has an impressive track record. For those of you who don't know him, Kevin Surace is an AI and automation pioneer. He's an entrepreneur. He's an inventor, a keynote speaker, and he's known as the father of the virtual assistant. And the list goes on. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of Kevin's achievements. And like I said, I could probably host a whole podcast episode just talking about that. But we'll jump right into our conversation with him today on the Wilmac Wire. So to start things out, Kevin, he holds 94 worldwide patents, including voice user interfaces, soundproofing, and AI-driven technologies. He's also the chairman and CTO currently at Advanced.ai, which is the leader in generative AI for software quality assurance. And most importantly, not quite, but he's originally from Syracuse and he went to Rochester Institute of Technology. So he currently lives in Rochester, which is where Wilmac Technologies is based. So that's how Kevin and I were able to connect. Kevin, thanks for joining me on the Wilmac Wire today.
Oh, so happy to be talking to other Rochesterians, Emily.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm originally from Buffalo, so I have to consider, but I've been here for, I don't even know, 7-8 years at this point. So I think I'm officially a Rochesterian, even though
that's great.
With your location, I can see in your background, you're in beautiful Hawaii.
My particular location is right above Kapalua Bay today. So as we record this, so we've escaped the snow for a little bit of time, and Rochester winters have been pretty tame for the last decade or so, but not this year.
No, not this year. We're just talking. We got a good foot of snow over the weekend. So, to say the least, I think I've said I'm jealous multiple times now that I'm not in Hawaii. Not in Hawaii. All right, Kevin, thanks for joining me on the Wilmac Wire today. To give our listeners a brief overview of what we'll be chatting about. Like I said, Kevin has a vast knowledge of AI. He essentially lives and breathes it every day. So that's what we're going to talk about. AI, his journey into his career, how he became the father of the virtual assistant. And then we're going to discuss the implication of AI in Wilmac's realm, specifically in contact centers and customer experience. So to start things off, Kevin, can you just walk us through your background and how you got into AI and disruptive innovation?
Yeah, so I had already been in Silicon Valley for some time. I came from out of RIT and went right to Silicon Valley. And that was the late 80s. And so a long time ago. And I started in semiconductors, and then actually started a company to make the very first smartphone, the smart cellular phone that was a data phone, and that was literally around 1992. So it was a long time before we have smartphones as we know them today. And that ultimately did okay, but I joined a public company called General Magic. And General Magic had a number of handheld devices, and that business wasn't going very well. But we really understood user interface. And I said, look, now that the cell phone is out, because cell phones were just starting to take off, and these are little Motorola flip phones and things, right? Not like what we have today. So very simple, but you could talk in your car, and that was amazing. You could talk, but at the same time, 1995, the internet hit. And so now people finally had email. Before that, we didn't really have email between different systems. You had email possibly within a work environment, but not outside that. All of a sudden, you're getting lots of emails a day. You've got calendar that's online now. You've got all these things that are actually living in an online environment as well as on a desktop, right? Mm-hmm. And so here you are with a cell phone, and you're driving in a car, but you can't do anything with it but talk. And so I had the idea of, why don't we create a virtual assistant? Because if my real live assistant was on there, what would she do? He or she would open up their computer and they'd connect to my calendar. Even you could do that at the time. And they'd say, oh, well, you have the following things on your calendar today. Or someone called and would like to get on your calendar. Or let me read you these emails. How would you like to respond? Right? All of those you could do with a real human. So we modeled the virtual assistant after a real human with, to solve a real problem. Then the real problem was, I'm in the car. I've got access to all this information now, and I need to act on it. So at that time, her name was Mary. Mary could actually answer your phone for you. She would schedule appointments for people that you knew. She would take notes from other people. She would let you know that these things happen. She would put people on your calendar. As I said, she could, if I called her, she could read me stock quotes. She could read me a web page, any web page that I wanted to go to. And of course, read my email and read my calendar and all the typical things, and collect my voicemail, etc. What's interesting is much of what Mary could do, which was fully interactive, was more advanced than we have today in Siri. And you go, how can that be? That was not our vision, guys. And in the end, Apple licensed all that technology and patents from General Magic. So did Amazon, so did Google. Everybody did, because those were the seminal, dozen plus patents that started the field.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So I wanted to, my first question was, why did you name her Mary?
Great question. I have a great answer, because at the time we used a woman in a recording studio. We built a recording studio for this, and we had to have her record literally, tens of thousands of phrases and words that would be all concatenated together later. So today with AI, we can have AI generate outstanding voice. Is good. I can clone my voice and it sounds just like me. But we couldn't do that then. We had to use different kinds of models. So we did a lot of concatenation. So she would take every word that she could say, and she'd have an up at the end and a down in the end. Love, hello, whatever. And then those would all be put back together with a set of rules based on what we heard from the user. And we did use AI, it was called hidden Markov models. And this kind of modeling is still present today, even in everything that we're doing. This is a very kind of sane artificial intelligence mechanism. But the bottom line is, her name was Mary because that is literally the name of the human. In fact, the human that we hired, her name was Mary McDonald. We call her Mary Mac.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And she's still around, and she's still doing voiceovers.
Wow. I honestly, like, when you originally said her name was Mary, I didn't think it was the person you modeled, like the woman who was was the actual voice behind it.
Well,
so
why call her anything else? I mean, we're going to see her every day. She was around the office all the time. Yeah. So if we call her Mary, we might as well call her Mary online, and that's who we were hearing. We were hearing Mary. Yeah. So she was Mary to everyone, and we had, I don't know, 3-4 million people on the system at its peak. And the system had a name called Portico and MyTalk and Magic Talk and the Quest Virtual Assistant. We made them for everybody else, and Excite Virtual Assistant, all these people, all these other companies, they essentially private labeled what we built. And so why not just call her Mary? Because that's who she is to us.
Yeah, easy enough. I respect it as a marketing person. I respect that, plain and simple. And then the second thing I just wanted to call out to our listeners, because we like to talk a lot here about how business needs or business solutions, these innovations don't come about without pain of some sort. And you said like that's where Mary came from, the pain point of being in the car and traveling and not being able to communicate. So I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to call that out.
Well, let me call it out further, is that one of the pet peeves I have about Silicon Valley is, we funded, 3,000 applied AI companies, mostly over the last 2 years. And most of them, not all, there are some great companies in there, but many of them are a solution looking for a problem. And Silicon Valley often does that, a solution looking for a problem, right? Which is, I've got this great solution, and it makes chairs out of weaved of cotton or something. Yeah. Okay, does anyone need that?
Right.
It's interesting. It's kind of like the juicer, that you'd put on your counter that the company died, of course, but you got these packets of juice and it would squeeze it and it'd make it and all that, except you could just buy the packet and squeeze it yourself. I mean, you really didn't need the machine. The whole and by the way, does someone really need juice from a packet that's mixed with water on your counter? Is that something I've been asking for? Does that save refrigerator space? I mean, I don't know what I'm doing, right? So I think you have to really, really say, here's an actual problem. Now, it could be a lack of labor, it could be the cost of labor, it could be the time, it could be accuracy, it could be lots of things. And then you say, I want to go solve that. Can technology solve this problem?
Yeah.
In most cases, it can. Whether it's worth the hundreds of millions of dollars you have to spend to solve it is a different question. But in most cases, you can solve it with technology as long as you're not breaking the laws of physics.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And we've definitely seen versions of the virtual assistant transfer into where Wilmac lives and contact centers when we're talking about customer experience, customer journey. So let me ask, how have you seen virtual assistants evolve, especially in contact centers?
Well, the big evolution is once transformers were available, and we've had deep learning now 13 years or so, since 2012. So we had neural nets before that. We have neural nets for decades. But we didn't solve the deep learning problem where you could have neural nets that are infinitely deep until 2012. And then Google did that and published the math. And then everybody could create deep neural nets, right? So deep learning works, as Sam Altman recently said, and that's a really true statement. When you look at everything we've done with transformers, deep learning works. That's it. And if you want to go deep learn 1 trillion tokens, you can do that. And that's incredible. So the biggest change we've seen with deep learning is I can model human voices. So I don't have to concatenate words and all of that. I can not only model them, then I can create brand new ones. I can model visuals and create brand new ones, right? So I can model Emily, and I can model Mary, and I can model 10 others. And now I can start creating all kinds of artificial versions that don't look anything like them, but have similar characteristics, right? And that's true with voice, and it's true with visual. So that's the first thing, is all of a sudden I've got voice that starts to sound very natural. The second thing is by using deep learning on speech recognition, we were able to improve speech recognition over the rules-based systems and hidden Markov models that we had. So we were able to take leaps and jumps on speech recognition. In our day, in the late 90s, 94, 95% recognition rate was a good number. Today, we can be at 99%, really good numbers, or even higher, and we can recognize entire phrases. Okay, and then finally, the last thing is then taking these LLMs, large language models or transformers, taking them in the background where they've learned the entire English language, and modifying them with a technique called RAG, right? And basically RAG, R-A-G, basically says behind the scenes, Mr. Model, you will listen to everything in the English language or whatever language that everyone says, but you will not respond outside of this set of data. Now that is a pretty cool idea. And it's kind of an embedded prompting technique. And what I mean by that is, if I'm in customer support, I have a set of FAQs that my people probably pull up on a screen. Here's the frequently asked questions. I type in and it comes up and something's there. Well, I can get now AI to first help do that, help pull better ones up and the most appropriate ones and all of that, while AI listens at the same time. And ultimately, I can have AI respond. There's no reason I can't have AI respond because it's trained with RAG, right? So it'll only respond within the set of FAQs that it's been given. So all of these pieces coming together are what allow us to say, wow, we can augment customer support in a variety of ways. We can also, if we choose to, at least perhaps at tier 1, we may be able to replace some people, or we may be able to reduce the extra hiring that you thought you needed by augmenting them, with AI. So all of those are possible today that we could not have dreamed of before the transformer, before LLMs and RAG couldn't have done it. But we can do this today, with the right company, the right technology, the right knowledge, really, really well.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, you still call into certain call centers and it's still press 1 for this, press 2 for that. And then
old style IVR.
Yeah.
It's like, why is that?
Right. And just with the, like you were talking about versus a virtual assistant answering the phone and saying, how may I help you today? And based on those custom phrases, addressing the FAQs, that sort of thing. It's just so leaps and bounds ahead of what the traditional IVR was. So it's interesting when I'm calling into a contact center or I'm dealing with a chat bot on a website, and you can tell I'm going right to an agent, and you're like, man, this is high cost,
Yeah, right.
So.
I think those days are, if we sit here and say, what do contact centers look like 5 years from now? It's not that there will be no people there. There will be, but they're going to be really well trained and focused on tier 2, level 2, level 3, right? But that level 1, we're going to take that first tier and answer it with AI. And there's a lot of data now that with a properly trained model, AI is outperforming humans at that first tier. Now, second tier and third tier are much more complicated interactions and problems, and there are things that you normally don't see, and people have to dig into it. That's a different level. And we're not going to solve that in the next 5 years, but we absolutely can be very thoughtful about a really interactive Mary talking to you. But now Mary isn't reading your email. Mary has read all the FAQs and say, oh, please plug in the toaster. Have you tried that?
Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Definitely. And I'm going to stay on that same vein of like looking to the future. So AI is in one way with virtual assistants and answering phones for call centers, it's transforming customer experience rapidly. Where do you see its biggest impact in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, no question. I think it goes along with what we just talked about, which is that sort of tier 1, that first blush. There's given where we are technology wise, it is hard to understand why people might, why a company might have 300 people doing that today. Like I said, the higher level 2, level 3, you're going to need. But at that level 1, where there are basic questions that get asked over and over again, and maybe there's only 100 of them. If you can answer that 100 with AI, you should be doing that. And really, the AI is friendly and interactive, and someone's going to get mad at me if I say every bit as good as a human. But they were trained, they were modeled after humans, right? So they really do interact in quite good ways. So look, I personally think that is the future. And as I've spoken around the country, I do 40 to 50 keynotes a year. Around the country and some around the world. There's no question at the C level, everybody's looking at their call centers that they had probably sent overseas 10 or 20 years ago as a potential, not only cost savings, but potentially improved outcome, leveraging a modern system in the right ways.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note too, like you said, it's low hanging fruit. Tier 1, you already have the data around what your frequently asked questions are. Everyone's talking about how do I implement AI to help with our customer experience. Right there, that's your answer for you.
That is the answer. That's right. It's tier 1, And you can have tier one AI customer experience up in, call it 30 to 60 days, pick your
Yeah.
poison, but
Right.
it's not a year. And
Right.
so you are going to see that ROI very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And look, you're going to take some of your people and retrain them for tier two and tier three because you need people at those levels. And there
Mhm.
might be some more people that end up at those levels that just bounce out of the AI, right? So there's all
Mhm.
kinds of things that happen. It's not that all your people go away, but tier one, look, like I like to say, take a look at the jobs that in the US we pushed overseas over the last 20 years.
Mhm.
So someone in the US at every company decided, here's a task that I am trying to drive cost savings from. So I may or may not be worried about the absolute quality or the absolute quality of the English interaction and all of those things. Because if I was, or if I were, I would have kept it right here. I would have kept it in Kentucky. I would have kept it in Rochester, New York.
Right.
But nobody's going to build a call center of 300 people in Rochester, New York anymore. It wouldn't make any sense. I mean, they're wonderful people and the interaction's great and you can, but it doesn't make any sense. So
Mhm.
everyone shed that overseas already. So they already said, I don't want to spend $15 an hour. I want to spend $1 an hour.
Mhm.
And now this technology comes along and says, how'd you like to spend 10 cents an hour?
Right.
You go, well, I already said I don't want to spend 15 and I don't want to spend $1. So sure, 10 cents is better than, or whatever the number is, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. Very good points. Okay. I'll move us into kind of our next section. Obviously, like we just kind of mentioned, there's a lot of buzz around AI. It's top of mind, topic conversation all the time. With that being said, what do you think the real opportunity businesses should be focusing on when it comes to AI?
Look, it's productivity, cost savings, and improved output, specifically for customers. Those are the only three, right? So, for example, if I'm applying AI in marketing,
Mhm.
what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to generate more content. I'm going to generate better content. I'm going to do it in a more productive fashion. I can generate 52 blog posts today for the entire year and be
Right.
done with blog posting, right?
Mhm.
Uh, literally, you can do that today quite easily. And so all of those are around productivity, improved customer interaction, right? Reduce cost.
Right.
That's what this is about. Now, in a lot of cases, you have a reduced soft cost. And what I mean by that is you might have, let's say, 3 people in marketing.
Mhm.
You're not going to deploy AI with them and all of a sudden be at 2, but they are going to be twice, 3 times, maybe 5 times more productive than they were.
Yep.
And so that improves your marketing output. It potentially improves your customers coming in, your customer outreach,
Mhm.
and all of those other things, right?
Right.
So I think you got to look at it that way. Not everything just gets rid of a job. There are some things like software QA that are probably going to be fully automated, right?
Mhm.
There are some things like tier one customer support that much of that may be fully automated in the coming months and years.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of these things that are just going to make you more productive. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an Emily example today. So Emily and Kevin are using Riverside today, and most of your listeners could care less about
Yes.
Riverside. But once you use Riverside, you realize that not only are you going to get perfect video and audio, but you're going to get something else. You're going to get a transcription of everything that was said, tied to what person said it.
Mhm.
You're going to get a summary that is meant for podcasters, so it'll summarize it for you. So you don't have to go back and listen for an hour and say, what are the points I want to bring out?
Right.
It will summarize it for you. It will change those summaries for different social media networks, whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's Facebook or whether it's it will do all of that for you.
Mhm.
It can even take some of these video snippets and make them into, 10-second snippets for, say, LinkedIn. And you go, I used to have to do that work. It was kind of, now if you think about all those
Mhm.
things, it's a little bit drudgery. It's not the core value that you bring, but it's what you had to do. So if we were doing this on Teams, we're doing it on
Yeah.
Zoom, you would do a lot of that manually. And now you're going to push a
Yeah.
button and it does it for you and it's ready to post. And this is, so
Mhm.
it's made you incredibly more productive. So it probably took 4 hours
Yeah.
of post work and made it, 20 minutes or something like that. This is
Right.
good. It means you can do more podcasts.
Yes.
It doesn't mean your job went away because no one actually wants to do that. It just means that you can do more podcasts, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's funny that you talked about blog posting, because blog posting is the bane of my existence and my job. But man, when we started using ChatGPT, started training ChatGPT to impact our content in that sense, like it's just leaps and bounds. I'm more efficient. My team is more efficient. We're trying to take that kind of same thought process and apply it to the rest of our organization too, and just be thinking about how can we be better with our time. Like you said, we're not taking away from our jobs or anything like that. We still have a job to do.
Yeah.
How can you be more
I
efficient?
want people to think about it this way. I want people to, you know, for most of us in the US, AI isn't replacing us, right? And it's not augmenting us either, but it is taking your brain and multiplying it. So if you think the podcast is your brain, this is what you do. And by the way, I always ask if I'm doing if I'm hosting a podcast or something, I will ask GPT-4, hey, what questions should I ask? Not that I didn't think of most of them, but there's 2 or 3 I didn't think of, right? So it helps me be better at everything I do. It helps me be better, and it's helping your competition be better at what they do. So you have to realize, if you're not using these tools every single day to amplify your brain, your competitor is. And so why not amplify your brain? Why not have 10 Emily Millers or 20 or 50? Because that's what it is, right? You took what was going to be a 5-hour task and made it an hour and 20-minute task. Okay, I've multiplied your brain.
Right.
You're still in charge. That's the other thing with all these models. You know, we are fully in charge. Humans are in charge. You know, ChatGPT doesn't sit there going, aha, I'm going to blow up the world. It doesn't do anything. It just sits there waiting for you to tell it what to do. And then it actually runs a set of math. It's not even language. It runs math that converts to language at the end that answers your query. That's all it's doing. Okay. And so who's in charge of that? Who's the robot overlord? Emily is. Right? You're always the robot overlord. And so here's this robot that comes along for $20 a month or whatever it is, and you're the overlord of it, and you can get it to do anything you want. You should be doing everything. How should I respond to this email? How should I respond to this text? How should I write this content? How should I summarize this meeting? What should I bring to the meeting? You know, how can I summarize this document? I don't have time to read all 76 pages, right? These are incredibly valuable. And if you're not doing them, someone else is, and they summarize the document and they save 3 hours of their day.
Yeah. 100%. It's interesting to think about too, because like you said, there's a lot of, it's buzz. There's good buzz, there's bad buzz. It's all buzz about AI, and that fear surrounding it. And in certain cases, we always say, like, you have to embrace it. Like, it is the future. It's not going away. We're trying.
It's not the future.
Yeah,
it is. It's now. Like that's a little bit like the people when the smartphone came out. You're too young, but when the smartphone came out, there were a lot of people, especially older ones, that, I don't need that. I'm never going to use that. Okay, well then you literally fell out of almost existence for most of the day. And because the rest of the world embraced it, you know, to the tune of like 3 or 4 billion people have smartphones, right? So this isn't a nice to have. You have to have it. It's a productivity tool that you must have to survive today. Even if you're 80 or 90 years old, you would need that. I'm not, but there are people I know who are. So like every technology before it, look, there were people who didn't want the automobile. They stayed with their horse and buggy. And to this, you know, as you know, in upstate New York, we still have people on horse and buggy that don't believe in cars, and that's a choice. But you're not going to be competitive with people who have cars. You can't compete. And so Emily or Kevin could not be competitive with any other worker if I didn't have a smartphone on me all the time. I couldn't be competitive, right? Because they're on their device at lunch, and they're on their device when they're driving, and they're whatever, right? And this is true with AI. Once Transformers hit and once they became quite usable, so let's say over the last year, if you're not using it for work, not playing, I mean, using it for everything you do at work, then you are behind everyone else in your office and every competitor, and you will lose. Can't win that. Last thing, I'm on the board of RIT. So one of the things I like to say there, we graduate great students. But I like to say this to the professors. I said, there's two kinds of students that are going to be interviewing in the spring for jobs, right? One student comes out and goes into this company, maybe your company, right, and says, well, my professors told me to never use those large language models, and so I really don't know much about them. I've heard about them, but I don't know what they do, but I can probably learn. And the other person comes in and says, listen, my professor said not to use it, but I use it on everything, and I'm an absolute expert, and I can do things with that. I can upload Excel and analyze it, and it'll give me the visual basic that I need to do it, et cetera, et cetera. Who are they going to hire? They're going to hire the second one. No one wants door number one. No one.
Yeah.
All employers want door number two because they want people coming out of college with using the most advanced tools that they can. And so students who have used the heck out of it win. And the goal of the university is get students jobs. I mean, that's our job on the board of a university. Make sure we're graduating students who can get jobs right away that are high paying. And those high paying jobs are going to require you to be an expert in large language models, Gemini, ChatGPT, GPT-4, Copilot, whatever. Pick your poison.
Right. Yeah, I don't think you realize, Kevin, how close that example hits to home, because I had an RIT co-op who's starting for me full time in May. And when she originally started, she was very leery of ChatGPT just because the school had parameters in place. They don't want plagiarism, whatever. And I've slowly prodded and told her, you got to start using it more. It's gonna, if you don't, you're gonna be lagging. And she's embraced it. And like I said, like you said, now she's doing work of 2-3 times what she was originally doing. So I was just chuckling to myself as you were telling that story, because I was like, yeah, it's real for me.
It's real.
So yeah. All right. Couple more questions for you before we wrap up. Like we've been talking about, companies are investing heavily in AI. They're talking about it often. They're trying to figure out how to ingrain it in their day-to-day. What do they need to get right for AI to truly make an impact, and specifically in the CX space?
Yeah. Well, look, in the CX space, what do you know what we're measuring, right? We're clearly measuring productivity. We're measuring accuracy. We're measuring return call rate because they didn't get their thing answered correctly. We're measuring how many people bounce out of tier 1 to tier 2. All of those traditional measurements, just how you would measure your team, your human team. You will want to measure this. This is a new human team for you. It's a new human team. You're going to measure it the same way, and you've got to get that right. So we cannot be disappointing customers. But I will tell you, with the correct implementations, the data, because I've seen the data, are quite clear that the customers calling in get their answers quicker and they're more accurate than when humans sat in the seat. It just is. So you might start out augmenting your humans, and that's a great way to start, by the way, is you can augment humans on existing systems and help them find the answers faster and make sure that they've got the right answers, and even be listening to the calls with them and all kinds of things. Or you might graduate to say, at least in tier 1, I might not have humans in that call center. It's just going to go to a system in the cloud that's going to answer, right? And so I would measure it, and I think people measure it exactly as if you had a room of 300 people, and they better do a better job than the 300 people did, right? Higher customer experience, better customer experience, faster answers, and obviously at a lower cost, or else why are you doing it? Keep what you have.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, very good point. Okay, I'll move us into more about you, so our listeners can get to know you better. But you've built billion-dollar companies. You've pioneered the virtual assistants, which has been a large part of our conversation today. You've led massive AI innovations. What would you say is one of the most important lessons that you've learned from your journey?
Be humble, because you're usually wrong. Just start with that. When you are creating products, brand new products for an industry, for a market, it is you have to continue to listen to the customers. Now, here's what I would say: customers don't design products, or else they'd be working for you. So you don't go to them and say, is this the right design? But you do go and say, what are your pain points, because what you want to do is go to people who have money and pain points. By the way, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Do not create like you could do a startup and say, I'm going to solve world hunger. That's interesting, but that's
Mm-hmm.
probably for a nonprofit, right? That's something that governments and nonprofits do, because unfortunately, people that are hungry probably don't have money to pay you, right? That's the crux of the problem to begin with. And unless you're handing them money, you're probably not going to solve that problem. So you don't want to necessarily be altruistic in your in creating products, but you want to create products. Like if I was creating something for the CX space, it might be leveraging AI in it, and it better have a return on investment for the buyers that is provable. So again, you want to go to buyers who have money, who will give you some of that money. Otherwise, don't do it. So I think you got to be humble, because we all think that we've got just the best thing and everybody's going to want it. And then you start to sit down with real clients in focus groups and other things. You find that they don't want that at all. It doesn't solve their pain point. Their pain was somewhere over there. And if you solve that pain point, they will pay you. But this thing, yeah.
Right.
And I've got products now that solve an actual. I'll give you an example. In software QA, we invented a product called AI script generation, and what it does is it finds all kinds of bugs in your software that you would have never found because nobody thought to operate the software in that way, but you do allow people to do it, right? So this is great. It gives you about 10 times the visibility than you've ever had to potential bugs in software.
Yeah.
Most companies don't want it. And you go, why don't you want that? Well, I'm not measured that way. Well, how are you measured? I'm only measured to find the bugs in these 100 things. These other 1,000 things, it's great that we found the bugs, and some may be very important, very critical, but I'm not bonused on that. I don't get measured that way. So the QA teams aren't measured that way. Therefore, they don't know what to do with all that information. I've had one company say, it's great that you found this really serious, and it's on our retail website, really serious bug in our retail website. But I don't even know who to bring that to, because it's not in my list of things I'm supposed to find. So now I found something that is serious and bad, and customers are clearly seeing it, but I don't even know who to bring that to, and I'd probably get dinged if I did. And you go, what's the world come to? Well, the world got there because it had limited QA teams, and so they limited what they wanted them to look for. And they said, here's the 100 things you can look for. Don't look outside of that. So we come along and say, we can show you 10 times that. And they go, no, just this is all I'm measured on. So, but that's artificial. That was put there because we had small teams, right? So these are some of the things you run into, and then it takes a lot of education, a lot of education.
Right.
And then you have to go way up the ladder to, say, a CIO who does care, or a CTO who does care that there are bugs everywhere. They just didn't know that there'd be a system that could find it, right? So, but you're not going to sell to these people because they have a different set of problems. They have to test these 100 things, and they don't have enough people to test those 100 things. So just test those 100 things, and I'll be happy. That's just an example of, it's great work, it's correct, but it's hard to sell to the people who are supposed to use it and buy it because they're not measured that way, though they should be. They're not. So be humble and, be ready to eat crow because you're, wrong more than you are right. All products take, twice as long and 10 times the money than you thought they would. And I've got a company in Rochester called Token Ring, and we have really reinvented cybersecurity with next gen MFA. So all 2FA and MFA is exceptionally easy to hack. Actually, you can download a software program. I won't get into the details how this works, but if I'm a hacker, for $2,000, I have the code on your phone that just came to you, right? It's that easy. So I can get those codes. I can enter whatever I want to. I can get into, company's bank account or the company's emails or whatever they are. So that's called legacy MFA. Everybody uses legacy MFA today. We invented next generation MFA. Well, fortunately, the timing ended up right, but it took longer to make the product than we ever thought because it's a ring that goes on your finger and it has like 80 components inside. So You try to put that many,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
electronic components inside a ring, and it's really, really hard. And the ring has to look
Yeah.
like jewelry, right? So it's a ring that is tied to
Yep.
your finger and tied to your fingerprint, and it's a biometric ring. And so nobody can get
Mm-hmm.
access to your applications without your biometric ring and your fingerprint. It's really great, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the end of ransomware basically when if you have that, right? They're not, nobody can get in. So that's an example of something that took about 10 times more money than we thought, about 3 times longer than we
Yeah.
thought. But it absolutely solves a real problem at a time when ransomware's rampant.
Right. Very cool. Like you said, it all has to come from a problem, and we're experiencing that here day to day at Wilmac. We have been a reseller and service provider for such a long time. We solved for that issue, but now we're developing our own products, and it's always all right. When are we talking with customers? What are the challenges
Right?
they're bringing to the table? Oh, they're a current customer, and they brought up this challenge. Can we build a product for that? Is that challenge a typical challenge? So, I just think always, like you said, good business is listening for those issues and trying to solve a need. We don't want to push a problem in someone's
That's right.
face and say we'll solve for this problem you don't have yet. So that sort of thing. So I appreciate you sharing that, and I like the be humble piece of it. I always say I ate a nice piece of humble pie
Mm-hmm.
today. Um, so all right, that was my last more in-depth question for you. Any final thoughts or remarks before I close this out?
No, I think, look, we are not entering but in the age of AI. And
Mm-hmm.
AI, you know, we're going to see certain plateaus. And I think that, you know, LLMs, when they first hit, were wow. And now they're a little better. But basically, it's applying
Mm-hmm.
that technology to all the different fields now, right? That we're going to do for the next several years. There'll be other big wows that come out of AI research, but it might not be from transformers. We may need different models. Transformer will, my guess is,
Mm-hmm.
going to play itself out. We're going to have agents, as you know, and multi-agents and agents that do our bidding, where we send them to go off to do something. Today, they're not very good and they're very limited, but we've worked with the concept of agents for years, so we're going to see more of that. And you know, stop playing and start doing. Right? Stop playing, start doing.
Yeah.
Do real work with these tools and do it every hour, every minute, every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Keep it top of mind. Figure out how you can use it and go for it.
Try
Do
it.
it.
Try on
You're never
everything.
gonna know unless you
Like,
go for it.
hey, look,
Yeah.
you know, if you have an argument with your spouse in the morning, and you're at work and you're going, how do I respond to this? Trust me. Ask the model first. It will provide you far better feedback than might have been top
Yeah.
of mind. And it will probably keep you from
Yeah.
saying something you shouldn't say. Now, you might not use exactly
Yeah.
what its response is, but it'll give you some ideas that say, okay, this is really smart, right? I can be smart about this and thoughtful and
Right.
save my marriage, right?
Yeah. Right. Oh, and that reminds me too, before I close, just to give our listeners some context, I sent Kevin some of the questions beforehand and he was like, oh, put it into my AI and let's see what it says. So it was really impressive. And I was following along a little bit with some of the notes that I had taken from what your AI provided. And you hit on a lot of points. It was very impressive. And then before this, you were showing me the video version of your AI chatting back with you. So,
Yeah,
pretty
I have a
sweet.
video
Pretty
clone that
sweet.
I've created, and you can talk to the actual Kevin in video or
Yeah.
chat or audio,
Yeah.
right? So you can talk to me, I'll talk back, and it's my voice, it's my likeness,
Yeah.
it's a full interactive clone. By the way, I can deploy that clone into podcasts to be me. I can also
Yeah.
deploy the clone into Zoom meetings to attend a meeting on my behalf, take my notes, interact with the people in the meeting the way I would, and come back.
Yeah.
So this is just inning one, right? So this is just the first inning of where we're
Yeah.
going. I know that sounds spooky for people, but think about if I could attend 4 Zoom meetings at the same time. It's not a
Yeah.
bad idea. So I
No.
already have my video clone. All of us may have a video clone someday when it's
Yeah.
more accessible.
Yeah. And I guess our listeners will never know if I actually spoke to the real Kevin or the AI Kevin. They'll just have to keep guessing.
I'm
Just kidding. This is the real Kevin.
How do you know?
Uh,
it's been a pleasure, Emily.
Yes, thank you, Kevin, for joining me today on the Wilmac Wire. To any of our listeners, if you want to find out more about Kevin, he's very active on LinkedIn. If you want to see pictures of him in Hawaii, check those out. I highly recommend his LinkedIn. He's got some awesome posts. And you can find out more on his website, kevinsurace.com. And to spell his last name, that's Surace.
That's right.
So along with that, if you're looking for more about Wilmac, you can again find us on LinkedIn or our website, wilmactech.com. Kevin, thank you for your time today. I truly appreciate it. Get back to your sunny time in Hawaii. I'm taking some of the vitamin D through our virtual meeting right now because I badly need it. But thank you to everyone who has tuned into this episode of the Wilmac Wire. And again, thank you, Kevin, for your time today.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wilmac Wire. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform or visiting our website at www.wilmactech.com. You can also watch the full video recordings of every episode on our YouTube channel. Thank you for being a part of our community, and again, thank you for listening to the Wilmac Wire.